Now, to continue the story of my wife's second house arrest for 4 DUIs, and this is the first time seeing me. I was married for 25 years, and unfortunately, my wife succumbed to alcohol use disorder about 4.5 years ago. And I tell the stories. This particular one is when she was under house arrest. She had spent 65 days incarcerated because of her third and fourth DUI, which were almost back to back. And then when she spent 65 days incarcerated, and then she had 3 months under house arrest. And these events that I'm talking about happened when she was under house arrest. Now, when we came home, if you probably need to listen to this part two, but when we came home, my son and I, we had been looking at colleges in Northern California. We had been gone for about 4.5, 5 days. I'd say about 5 days. And when we came home, she was completely inebriated, lost in her own bodily fluids, broken cans and bottles all over the house. It was pandemonium. That night that we got home, which was a Friday evening, I got her upstairs. Took about an hour to get upstairs. We got her into the bed. I was just glad that she was safe in her own bed. Unfortunately, the next day, things escalated. And for her, they got worse. In fact, they got much worse. She had actually locked herself in the bedroom the next day. So I mean, a couple times I pounded on the door, and she just kind of mumbled, "Yeah, I'm fine." So I didn't really bother her. I was, it was a pretty tough time. I mean, she had been extremely inebriated. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. I brought water into her room at one time, and she was sound asleep the night before, so she had some bottles of water. I was worried about her dehydrating and going into, convulsions or something, because she was detoxing, but for whatever reason, she wasn't detoxing. We left her alone that day. And then I went out. I remember I had some chores, and I think I had a quick job I had to do. So I came back later that evening, and my son said that she hadn't come out of the room. And I knocked on the door again. The door was still locked. And this was about 7 o'clock at night. And I'm like, wow, she hasn't come out of the room all night or all day? So there was no lock. I mean, the door was locked, and the key, she had taken the key, which was usually up above the door sill. I ended up having to kick the door in because she wasn't making any noise. I could just kind of hear mumbles like, "Oh, oh," from inside the room. So I actually had to break the door down to get into the bedroom. And what I saw when I got inside was something I'll never forget. I mean, she was foaming at the mouth. There was literally just white foam coming out of her mouth, coming out of her nose. I mean, she was sitting up in the bed, just kind of, going back and forth, completely out of her mind. Didn't really know I was even there. And I just took one look at her, and I just immediately called 911. And once I called 911, I looked over to the nightstand, and she had taken several handfuls of her prescription medications. And she had probably 10 different kinds of bottles. I can't even remember everything from thyroid medications to, pain medications, all kinds of stuff. And she had obviously just taken handfuls of them. I remember at the time, I had my son go to the front door because the first responders, the ambulance and the police, had to come through the front door. So I stayed up with my wife and talked to the 911 operator. And eventually the police and the ambulance came up the stairs. They had to take an evaluation of what was going on because they viewed it as a suicide attempt, which essentially is what it was. And unfortunately, they immediately strapped her to a gurney, took her downstairs, and took her away very, very quickly. And my son and I were just kind of standing there like, we can't even believe this is even continuing to go on after what had been going on. I mean, we had only left for a few days, and this was the kind of just absolute drama and toxicity that she was putting through herself and through everybody around us. And it was completely regardless of what anybody else was going on. It was just what was going on with her, and it was so sad. And again, I want people to realize this is not designed to disparage my wife or to disparage alcoholics in general. This is the kind of things that families and alcoholics have to go through almost on a regular basis. And an outsider looking at this just will not understand. It's very serious mental illness, certainly when you get into the later addictive stages. And it does progress. It gets worse and worse and worse. And families so often don't know what to do. And I tell these stories not just to resonate, but if you see this in a family member, it's time to take action. At this point, it's probably too late for most people, but you still need to protect yourself as a family member and really get the alcoholic in the best situation you can. Because in my wife's case, she went to the hospital. She was actually in a psych hold for 10 days, and she ended up staying in the hospital for about 14 days. They had to have a nurse 24 hours a day watching her. When she first went in, I was worried that she had brain damage from all the medications, but apparently they pumped her stomach out and they got it out early enough. I'm sure she had a horrible hangover. But when we visited her, the two policemen actually came to the hospital because they wanted to know what was going on, because she wasn't in the house anymore, and they just followed the GPS to the hospital. And they said, and I explained to them, she tried to commit suicide because it was just a crazy scene. And they went in and actually just took the GPS ankle thing right off in her hospital bed, and they said, you know what, you got bigger problems than this. We'll figure something else out for her. And I'll tell you what happened after. So after she was in the hospital for about 2 weeks, I didn't even let her come home. She immediately went to a rehab facility. That was part of the deal that I made with the court. And then she had to do a mandatory 6 months outpatient procedure, 6 months outpatient group therapy at a local group therapy, which was very, very good. She had individual counseling, and she had to go up to 8 hours a day. So it filled up a lot of her time once she got out of the rehab. So this was one thing that after another. This whole process went on for the better part of a year. So there will be a part 4 because this is getting a little bit too long. A quick jump out though. This is her memoir. It's called Amanda: A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. This story and a lot of other stories similar to this, along with a lot of early stages before she really got to the point. Very important book. It's from the perspective of the family, obviously my perspective, and a lot of interjection of what she was thinking and going through. Important book for alcoholics, families of alcoholics, and anybody who likes a good story. And again, thanks so much for listening.